Welcome back, dear friends. This is Lit E City, the YouTube channel that curates amazing videos that helps you in your preparation for exams like NTA NET English Literature. We are once again back with our series Key Terms, Important Terms of Cultural Studies, and in today's video we are once again going to discuss some very important terms that are generally asked in exams. So we will start with a very important term taken from the neo-Marxist theory, and the term is bourgeois individualism. This term is actually used and developed by the literary theorist, or we should say the historian of novel Ian Watts, in his influential study The Rise of the Novel, which is written from the Marxist point of view. While talking about the evolution of the genre of novel, Watts highlight the particular historical conditions of the 18th century England. This was the period when novel actually came into being as a popular genre. Before that, it was not so popular, and Watts pays his full attention on those particular socio-economic conditions that helped the rise of the novel in a single generation. Three or four great writers writing at the same time some great classical novels that basically paved the way for this genre to become one of the most popular ones. Now, focusing on writers like Daniel Defoe, Henry Fielding, Samuel Richardson as the founding figures, founding fathers of the novel, Watts' premise is that the novel rose to prominence with the decline of patronage system. Earlier it used to be patron system, and there was a rich patron and he or she, in most cases the male patron, decides what should be written by the writer. But now it was on the decline, and there was the increase in the power of liberated economic relationship of market, publishers, booksellers, and obviously the middle class reading public. Now these were ruling the roost. They were the forces that decided, that influenced the output of the literature also. This economic individualism, this belief in the self, this belief in the power of middle class, which Watts refers to as bourgeois individualism, is the hallmark of later capitalist society. Now, what asserts that modern realism begin from the position that truth can be discovered by the individual through his senses. Now, this is once again the belief of, we can say, rationalism, enlightenment, realism, and all these things, which also helped in the shape of the novel of the time. So in his article on Robinson Crusoe, which is a very famous article, Watts defines that the keynote of the bourgeois individualism is that individual is significant in his or her own right, and rather than having his or her significance subsumed by the general needs of society. So individual becomes the center. Individual becomes the key element of the capitalist society. Watts also highlights the role of market forces that shape the genre of novel definingly. What are these forces? He talked about these also: the plot, setting, characterization that help to create the world that appears to resemble the real world, or in other words, we can say it basically aims at the realism. This is what all these early writers tried to create in their fictional world. Aspects like style of the work, length of the work, they were also market driven, because generally novels of the period had long prose narrative written in a straightforward journalistic style. All these factors were decided by the publishers because they deemed these factors to be profitable. So in general, what argues that the emergent novel takes its great vitality directly from the impressive energies of the emergent middle class and their bourgeois individualism. Okay friends, The next term we are going to discuss is third space. Now, dear friends, third space is a remarkable and path-breaking concept which was developed by Edward Soja, the towering figure in the fields of urban planning and the social sciences. Dear friends, Soja himself was indebted to the cultural theorist Henri Lefebvre, who the French critic, who though didn't he use the same term third space, but he developed the basic premise of the concept which Soja later used in his theory. Soja discusses about the geographical mapping of human society and presents his concept of three levels of space. Now, the first space is the physical space, for example, which is visible from the top of a skyscraper. It is the mapping, compartmentalization of a space. In other words, it is the perceived space of the society, which we can see, which is concrete, which is real. That is basically, Soja calls this space as the first space. Now, the second space is the conceptualization of the first space, which means the space we live is represented through art, advertisements, any other medium. It is not the perceived, it is the conceived space, which is actually created with many symbols by the architects, town planners, and other related agencies to mark, for example, an area in a particular location as posh area, rich area, or it is we can say an area related with slums, or we can say it is an area of hardcore criminals. It is basically created through images, data, and other such features. Now, third space, it combines first and second space to create what Soja himself describes as a fully lived space, a simultaneously real and imagined, actual and virtual. It is the locus, it is the space of the structured individuality and collective experience and agency. So, the third space can be defined as the experience of life in the first space, but it is mediated, it is experienced, it is imagined through the second space expectation. So it is the actual lived space where both real and imagined experience take place in terms of space. An example of third space could be a shopping mall. First space would see it as a geographical area in the center of a town which is visible to anyone. Second space would see it as an elite place where goods are sold and bought. Now, third space point of view, mall is a place where people come together, they gossip, they socialize, they experience, buy local and global products, and they give meaning to this space by socializing. Every person experiences it in a different manner. So this is actually the third space. We can understand this spatiality concept once again. First space is perceived one, second space is conceived one, and the third space is lived one. This is what actually these terms were used by Henri Lefebvre, but later Soja used it in the sense of spaces. Okay, our next term, dear friend, is anchoring and relaying. These are the terms used by the famous semiotician Roland Barthes with reference to his theory of semiotics and with regards to images and the use of text with images. According to Barthes, every image is polysemous. What does he mean by polysemous? Having multiple meanings. There are so many, not only we can say simple meanings or dictionary meanings, but there are many connotated, not only denotations, but many connotated meanings also, along with its main signifier, whether it is a sound image or whether it is a name given to it. There is a floating chain of signifieds or ideas about what it really is that exists in the mind of the spectator, mind of the viewer when he or she watches an image. Now, out of these many signifieds, a reader may choose particular meanings, knowingly or unknowingly ignore the other meanings depending upon their cultural context, and this may result in ambiguity or confusion regarding the exact or the correct or the, we can say, the definite meaning of the image. We can in other words say that the same different persons looking at one same image may interpret it differently. Now, to avoid this, a text caption is used, which works like an anchor, and it limits the possibilities of interpretation for the image, because along with the image, the caption gives some additional information which limits, which controls, which remote controls the interpretation process of the viewer. The linguistic message is an anchor, directs us when we are looking at the image towards a meaning which is selected in advance by the maker, creator. Anchoring is thus used as a meaning of controlling our process of interpretation. Without the text, if there is no such text, we might think it a plate of orange slices, some other fruit. Now, when there is a caption, when there is an anchor here, it adds for the viewer, the perception of meaning is now almost fixed, that these are not fruit but rather cookies. So we can basically, the anchoring is used to fix the meaning of an image which is otherwise can have many meanings. Another function of linguistic message is relaying. Now, a picture may create a gap of interpretation between that particular unit and overall meaning. So, we may be at loss to understand the basic meaning. Now, the language, the linguistic caption fills the gap that the image cannot, and similarly, the image can provide an additional layer which the language cannot. So, it has a relaying value. The image relays the meaning to the text, and text relays the meaning to the image. Two are fairly separate from each other, and they bring their own bit of information to the overall message. This relay text is essential in film, where dialogue not only clarifies but advances the action of the plot by providing a sequence of meaning that cannot be relayed by the images themselves. And at the same time, there are scenes in the movie when there are no dialogues, just images, moving images. So it's a, we can say, a very close knit unit of image and text that relay the overall meaning. Comic strips also depends upon both the image and the text. Here you can see some modification with the spelling. Please correct it. So, text for creation of a specific meaning. Look at these two pictures. They are the same, and there is one particular caption is used. Dreams Unlimited, and second one Jungle. So if we look at just the image, the information, the context, because we have missed it, we may interpret it differently. But if we have a linguistic message attached to the image, our perception, our interpretation of the image either changes or completely alters, or it is modified, or it is promoted in the same sense. If we interpret it with Dreams Unlimited, we look at the crowd with different meaning. If we interpret with the jungle, we look at the crowd in a different meaning. So basically, Roland Barthes tries to point out that the combination of image and text create both anchorage and relaying of the meaning. The last term we will discuss today, dear friend, is commodity fetishism. It is one of the key concepts developed by Karl Marx. Sorry, once again, a poor shabby verb. Karl Marx to critique the capitalist mode of production. For his analysis of the relationship between a commodity. What is a commodity for Marx? anything which is designed for benefit, which is created for, which is produced for benefit, monetary benefit. Now, to discuss the role relationship between commodity and society, Marx borrows the concept of fetish, a term used initially by colonial powers to describe inanimate objects which were considered to possess fantastical powers in the indigenous cultures like Africa, Australia and Asia. So fetish were some, we can say, imaginative magical powers like a wooden or stone image may have. Now, according to Marx, in capitalist society, social relations are basically relations between commodities, not between people, which he also points out in his theory of alienation effect. Real producers of commodities, the workers, the laborers, remain largely invisible from the shop. A commodity thus possesses a mysterious ability, just like a fetish, to create or renew social relationship, being both an ordinary physical object, like anything created by a worker, and a generator of social relationship. A capitalist society treats commodities as if value inherited in the object themselves rather than in the amount of real labor expended to produce the object. Now we approach their product through the relation which the act of exchange, money and product, established between the products. The products of the proletariat are accessed through the exchange of money, gold, paper currency, and through those institutions that glean profit from the labor of proletariat, and proletariat herself is absent from this profit-making commodity. In capitalist society, gold and then paper money become the direct incarnation of all human labor. It achieves a fetish status by just being wood, or we can say paper, but having a magical quality, much as in primitive society. The totem, the fetish, the voodoo doll, the stone becomes the direct incarnation of Godhead. Okay, dear friends, that's all for today. I hope these terms are now clear to you. These are my very important terms, my dear friends. Please keep reading about them, watching this channel and giving your important reviews about the videos. Thank you, friends.